The Birth of the Red Pill, a conversation with Tom Golden and Paul Elam. Let's go. Oh, welcome, Paul. We're going to talk tonight about the birth of the red pill. What do you think?
Oh, man, it was a traumatic birth.
I'm telling you.
I'll tell you that. I have a new respect for women, Tom.
Indeed.
Squirting out that big red pill was rough.
It was a big red pill, and bless her heart.
Yep.
You know, I have the greatest appreciation for Cassie, but let's talk about when it first started. When she first emailed you, email was her first connection with you, right?
Yeah, it was, and that was back in the middle of 2013, I believe.
Yes.
Maybe a little earlier, May, June, something like that. But I got an email. Somebody said they were interested in making a documentary on the men's movement. And to be honest with you, I'd gotten a number of emails like that from college students and you know, young amateur filmmakers that had the ambitions of doing something, and nothing had ever materialized. So I was like, yeah, right, whatever. So I wrote her back and said, sure, no problem, let me know. Just trying to be nice, because I frankly did not expect to hear back from her again, or at least not many more times.
Right.
But I heard back right away, and she said, okay, well, I'm going to take some time to do some things, and I'll be in touch with you later. And I'm okay, like, yeah, right, you'll be in touch with me later. And I went on about my business, not thinking anything about it. And then it was a couple of months later.
Huh.
She wrote and said, yeah, I'm going to go with this. Going to absolutely do it. And then I, you know, to be honest, a lot of times with emails, I don't read all of them. I get a lot of mail and I don't read it all. And she had mentioned in her earlier, I went digging back through the emails at that point, thinking, okay, well, she's serious. And then I found out about her other two movies, which she had mentioned in earlier emails, but I just didn't snap to.
Right.
And I thought, wow, shit, she's serious.
Yeah.
She really wants to do this. She's an actual movie maker. And so then, of course, the first thing was that panic set in. Because we know how the media has treated us so kindly over the years.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, well, here's my choice. This is probably a hit piece. In all likelihood, if any of my experience applies, this is a feminist asshole of a woman who is pretending to be nice so she can get in enough of my good graces to gather footage and, you know, do an attack on the movement, on me or anybody else I might refer her to. And so then I started asking more questions. And the one thing that stuck in my head was that, as she had pointed out, she said her way of doing films was to be the fly on the wall, that she really didn't want to take a side, and she believed her other work would reflect that. And it did.
Right. She was true to her word.
At that point, she was. Of course, I still didn't trust her.
I hear you. I remember those days.
Yes.
You know, and scratching our heads and thinking, is this for real? You know,
I used to record interviews with the media, and I still do. Anytime they contact me, I do them on Skype and record them.
Yeah.
Just like Cassie Jaye herself just did with this. I think it's the Sydney Morning Herald.
Yes.
Interviewed her and did a total hit piece, and the interview had nothing to do with the piece that was written.
Right.
And that is exactly what I was expecting from Cassie Jaye.
Correct.
And so the process I went through was what I had always gone through with A Voice for Men, is that we got negative attention. We got attacked. And that brought people to the site.
Yes.
And there would always be this small fraction of people that really didn't want other people to do the thinking for them. And of course, you know, some of the people that these hit pieces were sending to the site were actually men who had been screwed over in family courts or who were predisposed to agree with what they were reading. And we grew from that. So that's the decision I made. I assumed Cassie Jaye was a feminist out to do us harm. And I decided that I would exploit that in the same way I'd always exploited media in the past. And that I knew that I would take some grief from maybe FM readers and supporters for it.
Right.
Because
how could you do something with a feminist, Paul?
Yeah, well, that, and when I announced it on A Voice for Men, the comments instantly flooded with, "Oh, she's going to do a hit piece." They're all Chicken Little comments. And not really fair to say Chicken Little. That was their experience.
Hey, it was my experience too.
Yep.
I felt the same way.
Of us our ass kicked by the media over and over again to make a point. But they were naturally skeptical, and I discussed this with a lot of readers, and I told them I agree, I'm skeptical too. And sure enough, as it turns out, in the whole arc of the story, at that point, Cassie Jaye was convinced that we were a bunch of evil misogynists, and she was going to do a little quick in and out and let us hang ourselves with our own words.
Yes.
I don't think she ever planned to abandon her style, but I think she really thought that if she came in and put a camera on us, that we would say all kinds of really fucking stupid things. Women ought to be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
A sandwich, bitch.
That's it.
And I think that's what she really thought that she was going to get.
Yes.
And then I noticed in communicating with her more, and I noticed it a lot more when I went out to San Francisco to do a lot of the interview.
Yeah, especially the time that you and Warren went out, I think.
Yes, that, and that whole, it was 3 or 4 days I spent there.
Yes.
In and out of interviewing. And what I noticed during that process gave me the first bit of hope that this was going to be something different.
Yes.
And Cassie was asking too many incisive, meaningful questions.
Yes.
For this just to be a run-in and get us to say something stupid.
And then listening.
Yes.
It's like, whoa, she's actually listening. Because her next question would tell you that she had gotten the first one,
Let me give you an example of how I know she was listening. And this is really kind of a funny story. But she had interviewed me several times, and we sat down for a talk about men and women and dating, that whole scene. I believe that's what the thrust of it was. And I brought out, my feeling that in modern relationships, I don't have any use for a woman that can't find her purse. I just don't have any use for a woman that expects to be taken care of like a fucking child.
Right.
And if she can't find her purse, then I can't find time for her.
Yeah.
And we had that conversation, and it was like a day and a half later, she came back to me and on camera, and I hope if Cassie's listening to this, that she puts this out there, that she said, well, when you were talking about dating and finances and stuff, I felt something.
Huh.
And it was uncomfortable for her. And so she asked me to explain more about that. And then I went into more detail about parity between men and women, if you're working people, things like that, the whole idea of men being the default wallet in the relationship, when that wallet represents men often risking their lives at work.
Yes.
That assuming that.
And sacrificing their time with the family.
And I told her that I think men needed to examine that. They needed to really take a close look at that in their lives and allow themselves to make different decisions if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
But what it was, if she was triggered, for lack of a better word, by what I had said in the earlier discussion, she could have just taken that clip where I'm being my normal blunt self and Paul Elam cheapskate written all over the scene.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But she didn't do that. She came back and wanted to hear more about why I felt that way.
Yes.
And so that was a sign to me that she was trying to listen, because this is digging in, those conversations are digging into a lot of real deep core issues between men and women. When you start talking about women find your purse, you're upsetting, tens of thousands of years of social tradition that women have been raised with and have come to expect. And for her to hear that and then not just, okay, I'm going to X that off as here's the scene where I get him for just not wanting, just being a cheapskate with women. But she didn't do that. And it was obvious at that point that she was trying to do, and also at that point, she was starting to articulate a little concern about what the future of this project would be. And
yes,
now this is before that she went, I think, red pill enough to conclude at the end of the movie that she would no longer call herself a feminist.
Yes, there was a whole gray period in there, in between, I remember.
Well, yeah, and from what she said, she really didn't start having all this stuff gel in her head until the editing process, when you have to go through all that stuff and listen again and again and again to what people are saying over and over again. But I was convinced before the movie released that it was going to be a fair film. Before we got to that point, and I was also very concerned and absolutely certain that they were going to come after her to destroy her.
Yeah, I know. We all told her that.
Yeah, and she has me on camera telling her that if she made a fair film, they would come for her. I hope on her raw files that she releases that.
I was going to say, did you know that the raw file tomorrow that's going to be released is you and Warren?
Oh, really? Another one?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
It's the ones that didn't get on the film.
Oh, yeah, because I'd already seen it on Patreon.
Is it on Patreon?
I think so. I think it's on her Patreon.
Well, I'm 2 days behind then.
Yes. Well, you're behind, Golden.
Where am I?
But yeah, I went from a guy that was barely interested in what Cassie Jaye had to say to, of course, very interested in what her project was going to be. And in the end, I mean, the really wonderful thing in all this is that she did do that fair film.
She really did.
She did a courageous, admirable job. Excellent production value. I mean, she just did a bang-up job as a filmmaker, too, all the way across the board. But Cassie Jaye absolutely provided redemption, I think, for me personally in making this film. All the attacks on me over the years. First time I watched it, I wept. And I wept some the second time I watched it.
Yes.
But it was like, finally, after all the Time magazine and, the garbage, BuzzFeed, everything else, to try to paint me out to be some sort of monster and to paint the movement, more importantly, into being something sinister and rooted in hatred of women. She put all the cards on the deck, and now she's paying the price. And I hope she's also getting some reward. I know for me, this job has been pretty much equal parts reward and punishment.
Yes.
So I hope she's getting some of those rewards.
Oh, she has my love and respect, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, she also has my support on Patreon. So if you're watching this...
And me too.
And Tom too, if you want to help Cassie Jaye, go throw something in the tip jar on her Patreon. And that way you get an early peek at all that stuff. Tom and I have Patreons too.
I was going to say, go check out Paul's.
But I was making
and Tom's.
Cassie. Paul, Tom, and Cassie. There you go. Three's a charm.
I remember, Cassie, you're talking about the what sort of shifted your thinking. One of the things that shifted my thinking was when she was taping, just her, I could see how she was so connected with what I was talking about, and the emotions were there. It's like, she was just, it was like she really got it. She wasn't detached from the whole thing. She was allowing it to kind of come in, and I could tell by her response that she was feeling it. When I heard that, that's when I kind of went, yeah, I think this would be a good flick. because I really was not convinced, even right before the film came out, that it wasn't going to be a hit piece. You know, I had less faith than you, Paul. You know, but boy.
Maybe I'm just smarter than you, Tom.
Well, maybe a little bit, only a little bit.
I'd love to imagine that somewhere. No, but and I'm sure it was a really pleasant surprise for you to.
Yeah, oh God! I tell you, that first time I watched it, out of the darkness, to hear her voice, just what she said, tears just started coming. It was like, ugh, because you could tell from the opening moment that she was going to tell the truth. She was going to tell the truth, and it's like that just broke my heart wide open. I said, "Oh, thank the Lord, and pass the biscuits." You know, this is a wonderful thing. And, you know, maybe you and I should get Warren on here and talk a little bit more about the beginnings of things from his perspective, too. What do you think of that?
Oh, I'd love that. I haven't
he
done
says he'll do it, but
he's in a long time.
He's hard to corral. You know?
He's hard to corral. He's a busy guy working on his commission.
Yeah. And he's almost finished with his latest book, so that helps. Once he's finished with that, we'll be seeing Warren again.
Yeah, I think Warren has plenty to do, but we should rope him in and discuss that.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Get the three of us back together again.
Yep.
It'd be a fun thing. But I appreciate your thoughts tonight on, you know, the birth of the Red Pill and how the story went for you and what happened for you. It's a fascinating story and a freaking great movie.
Yes, it is.
And how do we end this? I know. Men are good. As are you. And all you guys out there. Don't let anybody tell you different, especially the feminists. All right. Good
Men
talk
are the
to you, Paul.
best. Take care, man.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.